Hi, welcome to verse of the day. My name is Brandon Hathaway. I'm the preacher here at the Westside Church of Christ in Owensboro, Kentucky. I want to thank you for joining me today as we open up the Bible and study the Word of God. Today we are in Proverbs 13. Proverbs 13. Going to look at verse 24. Proverbs 13 and looking at verse 24. Again, always encourage that you read the entire chapter. There's a bunch of good points made throughout this chapter. Um, talks there's a few verses that go talking about the poor and the rich and the mindset there and the gains of the fool and the wise. And so good to go ahead and read all that. And again, if you ever have any questions or want to study further, please reach out, let me know. But Proverbs 13 verse 24 reads, he who holds back his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him diligently. We live in our culture here in our society. I feel like a lot have pulled away from this. The world has caused parents to think that it is wrong to discipline their children. It's wrong to spank their children, to um, whip them, to punish them more physically, um, and truly get onto them and let them know that they're wrong. But yet you read the words here, and again, this is the words of God, right? This is a book, chapter, and verse from the scriptures in which God has given to us, and all scriptures are God breathed. All scriptures are the breath of God, and so, and so it says, "He who holds back his rod hates his son." I had knew someone who used to go around and get upset when we because the proverb that we've kind of course, I don't hear it much anymore. But when I was younger, it used to get thrown out was he spare the rod, spoil the child, right? If you spare the rod, you're going to spoil the child. And I remember somebody who used to throw fit. He's like, "Well, that's not a scriptural proverb. That's just made up by man." And all right, but there are plenty of verses in the scriptures that talk about disciplining our children. Talk about how God, if He loves you, He's going to discipline you. That He disciplines all who He loves. And so we're following the example of our Father up above. And here is stronger words than spare the rod and your child's going to be spoiled. But rather, it says if you spare the rod, if you hold back it, then you hate your child because you don't want what's best for them. You're more concerned about hurting their feelings and your relationship with them. You're more concerned about looking like a mean bad guy and not concerned about actually correcting your child and leading them in the right direction. You're not focused on just loving them, you're focused on wanting to be liked, right? And so that's the next part of verse 24. He who loves him, he who loves his child, right? Disciplines him diligently. This is the words of God. We're supposed to raise our children up, and as we raise them and they make mistakes and they go in the wrong direction, we discipline them so that we can correct them in the right direction. Again, I'm not saying you have a closed fist and you start beating your child, right? That's not what it's talking about. That's not what God is telling us to do. But, you're allowed to give your child a whooping. They're allowed to correct them. You're allowed to, you know, get on to them and correct them and let them know, one, chain of authority, that you're in charge and they're not. Two, that whatever they have done is wrong and has consequences. If we want our children to grow up in a world where they, respect the law, that they're not in fear of the cops, they're not fear of going to jail, they're not fear of, well, then they have to respect the chain of authority. They have to obey the rules. They have to do what is lawful, what is right. If they get a job and they want to keep a job and grow up in it, then they have to follow the rules. They have to work their way up the ladder. They have to continue to follow the chain of authority. And if we don't do that at home, they're not going to do it out in the world. And so let us be willing to discipline our children so that we can raise them the right way. I want to thank you for joining me. Hope everybody has a blessed day. If the Lord's willing, I'll talk to you later.